Okay, everybody is comfortable? Everybody is comfortable? One person unmute and tell
Yes,
me.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Comfortable? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do something today in a different mode. And if the link will be over by 2 hours and 40 minutes, so after that it gets over, no? Then I'll change the link once again. So please stay with me and let's enjoy the class. And hope you're liking the class. Okay, let it be. Okay, it will be coming. Okay, fine. So let me push it this side and make it clear. So dear students, sometimes I'll be asking for feedback. One person may unmute and just give me the feedback. See, so many days, 3-4 classes we have done with environmental accounting, and hope you are liking this, and not for only your course materials, not for only your coursework, but you take it for a very essential chapter, essential topic that you have to learn, and you have to go into depth of it because it affects everybody, each and every soul on this globe. So, and environmental accounting, I can tell you one thing, that it is also said as accounting, but it's an interdisciplinary topic. It's an interdisciplinary topic. It's a different people of different, faculties are involved in this environmental accounting, and it is for human good. It is for human welfare. So today, what you have understood what is environmental accounting exactly. I told you that environmental accounting is an accounting between the man and the nature. In fact, and there are different types of environmental accounting. How much we are getting from environment for our economic development, and how much we are giving back to the environment, and how much we are destroying the environment, how much problem we are creating to the environment. All these things are have to be accounted for, and this is not an local issue. It's not an individual issue. This is not even a country national issue. It's a global issue. Everybody please get muted, and if I ask for feedback, one person shall mute and tell me, any one person, whether I'm audible or not. Just Richika, tell me whether I'm audible and visible. Richika, I'm audible.
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
So
sir.
okay, so today I hope, see, this topic that I'm teaching you, there is much of things are not practical. Much of things may not be looked as practical, doing accounting, counting, and etc. Most of the things are theoretical background, but accounts are there. Inside accounts are there. You have to go to know it, and you should not think that since it is accounting is very much theoretical, so why attending the class? You can understand. Of course, you can read and understand, but in this types of class, in a very short span of time, it will enter your brain, and your brain is stormed, brainstorming. You say these things are there, and during this period, we shall get to the concept very clearly, very easily, very quickly, and after that, there is enough time for you to study all these things. And my job, that I think, is that to get you acquainted, to just to make you acquainted with the concept of this. Now, I explained you what is environmental accounting. I explained what are the different types of environmental accounting. I also explained to you what are the objectives of environmental accounting. I also explained to you what are the needs and objectives of environmental accounting. Also, I discussed what are the challenges or limitations in environmental accounting. But today, I'll not take all these things today. Today, I'll take a different topic, completely different. You see, environmental impact assessment. It's a very important topic, actually connected to environmental accounting, but I have taken it from a different angle. See, environmental impact assessment. How the impact of environment can be assessed, and why that is accounting only, that is accounting, but how it is assessed. That topic I am entering to the subject through environmental impact assessment. This is an international recognized topic, and for every country it is there. And today I'll try to take you overall the whole world to some little bit span of time. Most of the countries I'll be showing and then you'll find what the other countries are also doing, and then you can find what India should do, what India can do, and what India is exactly doing. And with these things, you can make your research paper, you can make your PhD topic, whatever you like. You can do a lot of things after getting to the this concept. So let's first define what is environmental impact assessment. You understand what is impact? Environmental impact on the economy or economic impact on the environment. When your company is doing some activities, it is having some impact on the environment. At the same time, a lot of things are happening on the environment, and those things are having impact on your economy. So both way you can think. So we shall understand what is environmental impact and how it can be assessed. And without assessing it, you cannot move a single step in anywhere. So what is environmental impact assessment? See, it is an assessment of environmental consequences. It means that when you take a decision, then you have to analyze what will be the impact of this decision. Only after analyzing the impact, then you take the decision. So it starts before taking a decision. It's a very important thing, forward planning. You can say forward planning, like in management accounting, we think before you do, we plan before you work, all these things. So when these things are connected to the environmental impact, then it is known as environmental impact assessment. So exactly what is done? See, prior to taking the decision to move forward with a proposed action, you do what? You go for assessment. What type of assessment? What do you assess exactly? You assess some consequences. Consequences of what? Consequences of a plan, consequences of a policy, consequences of a program, and consequences of the actual project. You think and assess all these programs, and then you take the decision. It's a very important thing. It's not that do the work, get the result, and analyze. No. Before that, you analyze. If you take, as a most important thing, if you take a particular decision for your company or for your country or for your neighborhood or for the globe as a whole, you make a plan, correct? You make a policy, correct? You make a program, correct? You make some actual project, okay? All these things before taking the decision, you go for assessment. So that is environmental impact assessment. It's not very much tough to understand, but we shall go around the world to study it. See, EIA is usually used when applied actual projects by individuals or companies. By individuals or companies, whenever do something actual, before that, you go for the assessment. This is also known as C. SCAC means strategic environmental assessment. Strategic environmental assessment applies to policies, plans, and programs when it is proposed by organ of the state. See, when it is done by individual or company, it is known as environmental impact assessment. But when it is done by the organ of a state, the national level, the same thing is termed as strategic environmental assessment. Whatever it may be, but it is actually impact assessment. See, an environmental assessment may be governed by rules and of administrative procedures regarding public participation and documentation of the decision making. You make some documentation of the decision making, what you're going to do. And the word that I used here, public participation. Public participation, please remember, in my next topic, I'll be discuss another topic I'll be taking about whenever do something, no, then you take the public opinion, and also you ask the public whether the things are properly being implemented or not. And that concept I shall discuss, in social auditing. Just get the idea. I'm giving you some hints here. I'll be taking up later on. So public participation and judicial review. Whenever you take some decision, there should be judicial review. Whenever you make a building, some simple example, when you make a building at your residence or for your factory, you take permission from the GMDA or municipality, something like that. You take permission of the government through some acts. So that permission, when you take, you apply for the permission, and this is that way discussed by the department, and only after that you are allowed to start. So these are actually environmental impact assessment. The purpose is to ensure decision makers consider whether or not to proceed with the project. When you are doing a project, suppose you are going for a factory, you're going for a company, you're going for an industry, then you have to take the permission. Exactly what is done in the permission? in the permission, this assessment is being done. First, you shall assess yourself, and then you take the permission of the statute, of the government, of the law. You remember some years back, there was the Tata company, they were planning to start a company in West Bengal. And this is known as Tata Nano project in West Bengal. But the government of West Bengal, they did not accept it. They rejected. They did not give the permission. So there's a different issues there. But ultimately, this company went to Gujarat, and they are doing very good business there. So whether West Bengal government, whether they accept it for good cause or bad cause, that is not my topic today. But this is some sort of assessment. So environmental impact assessment, actually, it is defined by International Association for Impact Assessment. There is an association of International Association of Impact Assessment. These people define what is EIA. See, the process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating the biophysical, social, and other relevant effects of development proposals prior to major decisions being taken and commitments made. So even when a government goes for a factory or industry, when you private company, private individual, private sector goes for some establishment, you have to go for assessment. And these things are common, dear students, common in every country. I'll try to cover some few countries and see, you'll enjoy these things. What different countries, how strict they are, and what measure they are taking. You'll be finding it interesting, I hope. So environmental impact assessments are unique in that they do not require adherence to predetermined environmental outcome. You are not going for outcome only. You are going for impact. It is not that you are going for only profit, only outcome, only this will happen, this will be good. No, you find the impact, because initially they may be good, but ultimately their impact may not be good. So all these impacts has to be determined, has to be analyzed. And actually environmental assessment, the thousands of years and crores of years, innumerable time, people are facing the impact of environment actually. But people were doing differently. I told you, they were worshipping, or they are doing whatever things all over the world. People are doing differently. They're worshipping their environment. All these things are going on. But formally, the impact assessment started in 1960s. In most of the countries, it started in 1960s. Yes, something should be done. We should do something for environmental protection or environmental effects or as an impact. And in 1969, USA, they started it. In 1969, in USA, National Environmental Policy Act was passed, NEPA. And that is the formal act in USA. See, when I talk about environment, there is no difference between different countries. Only the difference is that some countries are near to the sea, some countries are near to the polar region, some countries are Mediterranean, some countries are differently monsoon areas. All these things are different, but ultimately all countries belong to the nature, and all countries are affected by the impact of the environment. So this encourage, after that, 1969, when USA came formally about National Environmental Policy Act, then all over the world people started very much conscious. It's an interesting study to go to see whatever happening in other countries. And after USA became alert, then many other countries started passing the this act, this statutes, this, that, all these things. But before 1969 also, different acts have already passed by different countries, formally or informally, knowingly or unknowingly. All these acts are in favor of impact assessment. Let's see very briefly what is happening around the world, what is happening all over the world. See, USA, I told you, after 1969, the USA, they passed environment NEPA, US National Environmental Policy Act in 1969, and it came into force in 1970. Then Australia became alert. They want to do, yes, this is a very important thing. We should do something for protection of environment. We should do something. So what Australia did, let me tell you, I'll be giving you the PPT, but here let me go a bit fast. One might say that environment assessment procedure introduced at state level prior to Commonwealth Federal. Prior to that, Australia started. New South Wales, whose State Pollution Control Commission issued environmental impact in 1974. In 1970, USA 1969 Act became effective in USA. Then Australia became very much alert, with environmental acts in 1974. So that way, just let us go to a little bit here. And Environmental Protection Impact Proposal Act 1974 was passed in Australia. And Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Act in 1999, EPBC Act, was again passed in Australia. Not only one act, several acts are passed in different countries. Now I'm talking about Australia, only Australia. So an important point to note here that federal legislation does not override the validity of the state. In Australia also several states are there. You can find out what are the states there. So different states are making their own environmental laws, and in a federal system also they are doing. Like in India, central government is making some acts, and even state governments are taking some steps for environmental protection. We should go to those things. And same thing is done in Australia also. So whatever acts are there in 99, Australia passed EPBC Act, and the main focus point of EPBC was, main focus point was there important flora, fauna, ecological communities, and heritage places. All these things were given importance in Australia. Flora, fauna, ecological communities, and heritage places. These things should be specially protected. And for these things in 99, this act was passed. So the act defines national environmental significance in Australia. What are the significant points? These significant points that I've jotted down here. World heritage properties. Heritage properties should be proper. If anybody goes for say study of heritage tourism and all, you can connect it heritage tourism with environmental assessment or environmental accounting. You say then national heritage places, wetlands of international importance, listed threatened species of economical communities. In Assam, there's Majuli. You can give a very good study about Majuli and all other problems that are happening here, environmental, ecologically. These things may put in the study, and government should make acts on these things for protection of these things. So I'm talking about Australia. Migratory species protected under international agreements. In India, birds come from Siberia. Birds from Siberia used to come to this Kaziranga, and people used to kill these birds. So those things should be protected. Acts should be passed. If in Assam, if in India, these acts are not there, we should this study of Australia should act as an eye opener to our policymakers that we should also pass acts like this. And if acts are passed, we should study these things. And Commonwealth marine area, these things should protect a Great Barrier Reef marine, the nuclear actions, including uranium mining, water resources, the most important thing, water resources, coal, steam, gas, etc. should be protected. So these things are done in Australia, and in Australia, several other states are there, provinces are there, like Queensland. In Queensland, they have also passed Act for Environmental Protection. This is Integrated Planning Act of 1997. They passed it in Queensland. Then secondly, Environmental Protection Act 1994. Thirdly, Public Works Organization 1971. Finally, Environmental Protection Diversity Conservation Act 1999. So these things have been passed in Queensland of Australia. In Northern Territory also, Environmental Assessment Acts have been passed. Then Inquiry Act of 1985 has been passed. In Southern Australia, Development Act of 1993 has been passed. I'll be giving a detailed PDF. Don't worry, I'm going here very fast in a brief way, just touching the points so that you can get some idea about what is happening around the world. So that's why I'll take your feedback later on, whether you like it or not. I hope you'll like it. In Tasmania also, several acts have been passed for protection of the environment. What acts are there? Mixed Environmental Management and Pollution Control Act of 94. Then Land Use Planning and Approval Act of 93. Then State Policies Project of 93. Resource Management Planning Appeals of Tribunal Act 93. We shall come to India also, but before that, let's see what is happening around the world. In Victoria of Australia, Environmental Effects in 1978. 78 is there. In Western Australia, Environmental Protection in 1986 is being passed, and then come to Canada. I've given it 2-3 minutes about Australia. Let's very briefly let's go what is happening in Canada. There is Canada, there's a Supreme Court of Canada, they have taken steps in this direction. And exactly what they've done, and they are saying the opinion of the Supreme Court of Canada. Let me go briefly read out this. Environmental impact assessment is, in its simplest form, a planning tool that is now generally regarded as an integrated component of sound decision making. This is the opinion of the Supreme Court of Canada. They are saying if you take sound decision, because sometimes you take some decision, that decision after that you go for establishment and construction, and that construction can give you the benefit for next 50 or 100 years. But remember, this world is not belonging to you people who are enjoying the benefits of the environment for 100 years only. After that also people are coming. You should think of your future generation also. So these things are there, and the Canadian Supreme Court has felt it that when you take for a sound decision making, you have to go for environmental impact assessment. The Supreme Court, what they say, basic concept behind the environmental assessment are there. What are these? Early identification and evaluation of all potential environmental consequences. You find the early identification of the potential environmental consequences of a proposed undertaking. As soon as possible, you identify and you go for evaluation. What? Of the potential environmental consequences of a proposed undertaking. Whenever you go for establishment of undertaking, you think these things in Indian context also. You shall find no difference between the countries and countries. Almost same thing is there. But your duty will be to find what is going on in India. Around the world, if you move, then come to India, you'll find it easy, interesting to understand. That's why I'm taking this way of studying. I've made the today's session this way. Decision making that both guarantees the adequate of this process and reconciles to the greatest extent possible the proponent's development desires with environmental protection and preservation. Whatever you do, you have to give special emphasis to environmental protection and preservation. These two things. Not only that you use environment and eat and then finish off. No, not for this century or this generation only. Canadian Environmental Assessment Act 2012 was passed, and Canadian CEAA 12 came into force on 16th of July 2012, very recently, and it replaced Canadian Environmental Assessment Act of 95, which is not very much effective. So when an act is not very much effective, the government replaces the act and goes for new act for better governance. So this is a historical study. I've studied this several countries, 5-6 countries, and I have given you the gist of this. And whenever you are interested, you can go in-depth study of whichever country you study. And I'm not saying the limit to India only. Whichever country you study, you can go. But I'm making it just a bit point of interest to you. So in China, it's very interesting. Let's see what is happening in China. I studied about environmental assessment in China. I found, they are not very much strong about the implementation. Even one Chinese professor said that they are not very much, if someone does not follow the environmental, rules, then the punishment is not very deadly. Environmental impact assessment law requires that an environmental impact assessment be completed prior to project construction. Fine. The assessment will be completed prior to construction. But if someone ignores this assessment requirement, then what happens? Do you remember? I think that by this time I don't think you were born even 20 years back. During that time, we have noticed in Guwahati, many buildings, many constructions of shops and houses in Guwahati main roads, near the main roads were destroyed, even distracted by the government, demolished by the government. Why? They did not follow GMC rule, GMDA rule, and they made the buildings in such a way that the road is blocked somewhere, no road is narrow, and these are environmentally not good. So these were broken after before 15, 20 years. You can find in the history there. You can ask your parents, they're there. So why? Because they did not follow the environmental laws. But what happened in China? Let us have a look in China. If a developer completely ignores this requirement and builds a project without submitting environmental impact statement, only penalty is that Environmental Protection Bureau may require developer to do a makeup environmental assessment. Suppose if someone is ignored, then the department tells them, please don't ignore, do it, please do it. Please make it the assessment. That's much only. If the developer, many constructor, does not complete this makeup assessment within designated time, then only the bureau will authorize fine. And what is the fine? 25 US dollar, a fraction of small cost of most major projects. 25 dollars. That's very nominal. And the lack of more stringent and enforcement mechanism, very strict enforcement mechanism is not there in China. It has been found. And State Environmental Protection Administrative Act, China legislation hold, they kept in hold 30 projects in 2004. In 2004, 30 projects were stopped because they did not follow the environmental laws. And what happened? After 1 month, they were again allowed to go with their project. But these things is not done in USA. If you compare, in USA, it takes, once it is halted, now it takes almost 1 to 2 years to get it back to use. But most of the 30 halted projects in China were again they received the permission again to go on with their projects. And there's a Professor Wang Kanfa. This professor is a professor of China University of Political Science and Law. He said that this SEPA, the ACPA SEPA, this act is not sufficient because this is only, they are enforcing only 10% barely they're giving. Even this professor research, he said these are not very much sufficient. So this is about China, dear friends. Let's come to Egypt. What is happening in Egypt? Egypt is a bit better. Ministry of State of Environmental Affairs. There is a Ministry of State of Environmental Affairs. They are taking the care. So Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency, they are taking all matters of environmental protection in Egypt. You know about the pyramids of Egypt, no? You can remember, you can study these things once you get interest. Environmental and natural resources, including human health project against uncontrolled development. See, they are very much concerned about uncontrolled development. Think of India, think of Guwahati also, and think of Kolkata or many other unplanned cities. Very much environmentally, detrimental, you can say, accident prone. These things are there. So one is the human health. Human health should be given prime importance against uncontrolled development. In the name of development, whatever you're doing, Rabindranath Tagore said, give me back that forest, take this, give me that forest, take this city. Rabindranath Tagore said this. Why? Because human health is most important than uncontrolled development. In the name of development, we are going to any extent that human health is given least importance. So sustainable economic development meets present needs without compromising future generation. Future generation, needs of future generation should never be compromised. This is felt by Egypt, and they're taking great efforts in that. What is European Union? They're also doing the same thing, among them, European Union has established a mix of mandatory and discretionary procedure. If you go by the acts in European Union, certain laws are mandatory and certain are discretionary. So they are managing this way. Initial directive of 1985 and its 3 amendments have been codified. So there are something like in India, we are having some fundamental rights, some directive principles, sort of things, not mandatory sort of things. So these things are there in European Union. And there is one C, SCAC means strategic environmental assessment. So these things are there. And what they do exactly under the European directives, a compliant environmental impact assessment must provide certain information in these 7 key areas. Whenever goes some construction and whenever goes some impact assessment, what are the things you should include in the report? They have specified. European Union has specified. So when you go for environmental auditing in European Union, you take these things in hand and see whether the organization has followed or not. So these are the guidelines. What are these? Number 1, description of the project. Then description of the actual project and site description. All these things must be taken into consideration. break the project into its key components. What are the key components? When you go for some project, there's construction, then operation, decommissioning. For each of the component, list all the sources of environmental disturbances. Everything you note down. For each component, will input and output must be listed, like pollution, air pollution, noise, hydrology. So in European Union, their law is that whenever go for some project, you give the description, you give the site, you give the breakup about the construction, operation, and what negative effects or positive effects can come from this project in future. Analyze all these things, and after that, permission will be given. So much careful they are. The alternative also in the project you have to write what are the alternatives if this project is not suppose a project is submitted and suppose this is not allowed, not permitted, then what is your alternative choice? This also you mentioned in the project report, DPR, detailed project report. Examine the alternatives that have been considered, like biomass power station. Will the fuel source locally or nationally? How we shall manage it? Give the alternative. The description of the environment. List all the list of aspects of the environment that may be affected by the development. Populations, then fauna, flora, air, the soil, then water, humans, landscape, cultural heritage. All these things you give different chapter wise description how these things will be affected by your project. You make your project and find the assessment how this project is going to have impact on all these parameters. You can say parameters. There's a very good research line, this way you can research, make the research. This selection is best carried out with the help of local experts. You can go for some local expert. So where you are thinking about European Union, this can ultimately should see India. So if some idea can come to your mind, yes, we can apply these things. If it is in India, it is not there, you can apply, you can include in your research paper, these things. Then what about United States? I told you a little bit of United States also. This is significant. Description significant effect of environment. See, United Nations is very much interested with one word significant. Significant word is crucial here because definition significant must be defined. What is the significance? When you go for PhD process or PhD study or research study, you give significance of the study. You can include a topic and para, like that, a chapter, significance. In USA, whenever you go for doing something, you first explain what is the significance of this. A significance is a very important word. And this includes many things. Most frequent method here are Leopold metrics. Some mathematical software is also used for finding the significance. And these things are there. Thread-based studies made. Then there is environment is very useful. They have said about, they've accepted. I discussed about United States a little bit earlier. It has come again, so I'm not taking it much in detail. Then come to Netherlands. What is happening in Netherlands? Dutch legislation in September of 1987. They implemented first from 1987. They are doing all these things, and since then they're taking a lot of care about the environmental protection. What is United Kingdom? United Kingdom, what they're doing? See, United Kingdom, is a part of European Union. And you must know one thing. I'm not going to detail. Some other class, if you ask me, I'm going to do a deal in that. In since 1974, this United Kingdom became part of European Union. Then ultimately, European Union, they thought that we should not be a partner of European Union. We are losing being the partner. We should come out. So United Kingdom is Britain, and Britain exists from European Union, and that is popularly known as Brexit. Britain exit, Brexit. So United Kingdom, and some lot of stories are there since 2003, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7. During this time, there's a lot of the United Kingdom or Britain should come out of the European Union. This is the Brexit is there. So what is being done in United Kingdom? There is town and country planning. Town and country planning they have made in 2017, only 2-3 years back. And what is they are having their purposes to control Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, these things are there. Whatever is Hong Kong, let's go very briefly. Hong Kong Environmental Impact Assessment Act 1997. 1997. It became effective from 1998. And there are a lot of interesting things in Hong Kong. I'll be giving you the PPT, I mean, the study materials you can study. In April 2011, environmental impact assessment of Hong Kong, of the Hong Kong section of Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge. There's a bridge, was found to be breached the ordinance and was declared unlawful. See, there's a bridge to be supposed to be constructed in Hong Kong, but when they went for 2011 April, when they went for assessment and impact assessment, they found that the laws have not been followed. So this became unlawful and they rejected it. There was a bridge 2 years back in Kolkata. It was broken, Mazarhat Bridge in Kolkata. 2 years back, about 2 years back, and interestingly, half an hour, only 30 minutes back, I passed by Uber car through over this bridge myself. I went to hospital and came out, and then